that are listening to this as it's recorded rather than live. I'm just going to wait a second for those that are going to listen live to catch up. Guys, I just got to share this with you. Look at these trees. Look at this. Isn't that gorgeous? I'll flip you back around and we'll have a chit chat here in a second. I just thought you might like to see that. What a wonderful, beautiful place we live in, huh? Long drive. I am 670 miles into my journey here on my way home from class on the East Coast. First off, my standard opener, I am driving right now. Yes, I am. If you have a problem with that, either tune out or keep your comments to yourself about the fact that I'm driving. Putting my phone on a holder and pressing record is no different than pressing my GPS, heat, or other controls on the vehicle. I'm still checking my mirrors, which is also no different, this conversation, than if I was talking to somebody who was in the car with me. So on that, I just don't want to hear stupid shit from people because I'm not looking at you or reading your comments per se. I'm driving with a camera going. Not a big deal. So, just finished an awesome class in New Jersey, right? Those of you around the country, by the way, how's the audio? Am I coming in okay? I hope so. I want to make sure that the car noises and my little radio in the back are not bothering the audio. So I'm in New Jersey, right? I travel all over the country. And New Jersey is probably one of the most anti-gun of the states that we have. It's definitely also one of the, definitely the most anti-gun, which is really anti-freedom state that I've gone and trained. So as such, basically you need to make sure that you abide by those rules. You do that by doing a little research. I actually called the police in that state and made sure that I was abiding by all transport laws, magazine laws, ammunition laws. For example, it is unlawful to have hollow point ammunition in New Jersey. Actually, the law is even more complicated than that. You can buy the ammunition, you can possess the ammunition, but you can't transport the ammunition. So technically, you can't have the ammo because it's illegal to get it from the store to home. But I think people do. So we had a great class. We had a bunch of cops there. We had some dudes from the TSA. We had some guys from the tactical unit from the World Trade Centers. We had some guys from the HABA police, which was fun. Some good, concerned, law-abiding citizens that exercise their right of personal protection. Here's my thought. So we have this problem. Right now is voting season, right? I hope you guys are all voting or have early voted. If you have not, shame on you. If you're of the mindset that your vote doesn't count, shame on you. If you're of the mindset that it's all rigged, that's a lie. If you're the kind of person that believes in some kind of broad conspiracies that it's all rigged and we live in the Matrix, grow up. Sorry to say it. So here's the thing. Here's my challenge for you. My challenge. How many of you have read the Federalist Papers? How many of you have read the Constitution? It's only 4,500 words, give or take. How many of you have read the Declaration of Independence? Anybody? If not, you should read back up on it. How many of you have looked at other writings by the founders? Don't lose me now. Don't be like, what the hell is this guy's talking about? We have a problem here in the United States. We have a big problem. No, the problem isn't politicians. No, the problem isn't liberals. No, the problem is not anti-gun people. No, the problem isn't the media. Nope. It's not education system either. It's not Hollywood. No, it's not the church. It's not the lack of the church. It's you. Yep. You're the problem. Hey, why is that guy pointing his finger at me? Side note, when doing public speaking, pointing is not a good thing. He did it for a reason. We the people seek to form a more perfect union, right? Those are the words. We the people only have government that we allow to govern us because we agree to subject ourselves to said government. If those laws, if those people governing us step outside the confines of what our Constitution allows, we have provided for ourselves the ability to revamp said government. Civil war happened. Revolutionary war happened. And right now we have a war in the United States for the hearts and minds of our citizens. Yet, nobody's holding you at gunpoint for what you choose to read. Nobody's holding you at gunpoint for what you choose to view. Nobody's holding you at gunpoint or with threat of imprisonment by what you choose to eat. More importantly, what you choose to think. I'm not talking about the militia. See, I want you guys to understand something very broad, something very deep, something way beyond the weapon, something way beyond the tool, something way beyond what tools recite as the true intention of our Constitution. It's not about liberty so that you can have guns. The guns are there to protect liberty, but this nation does not exist to provide you free shit. This nation did not come about to secure you a free phone. This nation did not come about to give you a job or minimum wage or public education or public health care or any of those things. Even the road that I am driving on, my government does not owe me. You get that? Our government and our union was created for one simple purpose. Two, really. One, the government is instituted to protect the people of the United States from foreign powers. Pretty simple, right? Also, we create a system of laws to govern our country inside of what we have as a social agreement from man to man. So here's what's interesting. If you're the kind of person that thinks that you do not live, if you are a U.S. citizen, if you do not think that you live in the freest, most beautiful, most wonderful place ever in the history of mankind, you're ignorant and know nothing. If you think that there is another country in the world that allows you the same kind of freedom that you have here, you're ignorant and you know nothing. I'm using some of this speech to make you pay attention. Don't get angry at me. If you think that government is instituted to rule you, you do not understand how government came to be and why. If you think government has gotten too big and overstepped its bounds, that is not the fault of government. It is the fault of you. It is the fault of me, we the people. See, we have three branches of government and then us. We institute this government. We instituted this government. We then dictate through elections who is allowed in office. We, through the process of voting, of communicating with, of electing people, and communicating with said elected people, we dictate the law. Here's the problem. We have allowed lifer politician pukes to create a machine. We have allowed this to create a machine where now we've got a mess. Yeah. But I ask you this, how many of you have visited your state capital in the last 10 years to seek a change in law? I have. How many of you have visited your state government in the last 5 years because of a grievance in laws that stripped you of your constitutionally protected rights? I have. How many of you have visited your state government or federal government in the last year? Me. 6 months. Me. This isn't about me. I'm just okay so I can raise my hands. How many of you have visited your county government? I have. City government? I have. How many of you have got involved in the local election process to ensure that you have people in your system of leadership that think like you do, that understand and comprehend that our Constitution created this free and wonderful and beautiful place, not to give us free stuff, not to ensure that we live a long, full life, but merely to create a place where you can chase that. Look, are there people that are born with more than you or I? Of course. I didn't come from much. There's people that have millions and billions of dollars. Do they have a leg up? Sure. Are there people that are born with zero, abject poverty, maybe even born on the street, maybe born with disease, maybe born with some type of physical ailment, defect, something that they have to try to overcome? A country has nothing to do with that. Our country merely affords a place where they can live and pursue dreams, pursue happiness, and live a life where, as long as their dreams do not tread upon the rights of others, they are pretty much free to do as they please. Usually at this point, somebody interjects, I want to smoke weed, or I want to do this, and the government doesn't let me. Then change it. You are we the people. So I am very blessed and very fortunate that I am living my dream, living the life that I chose to set out upon. But nobody did that for me. I have people that have helped me. I have people that, equal opportunities, the government owes no one an opportunity other than the opportunity to live free from predation, from outside violence, free from criminal predation. Jefferson wrote about that it is the responsibility of government because we have instituted laws and we have a moral construct that we live inside of. It doesn't take a belief in God to know that stealing is wrong. It doesn't take a belief in God to know that murder is wrong. As such, we now have a system that if you do those things, you are punished. You dig? But our government doesn't owe you when I say our government, you're talking about me. You're talking about you. We the people doesn't owe you minimum wage, doesn't owe you health insurance, doesn't owe you a pension, doesn't owe you Social Security, doesn't owe you any of that shit. The $7,000 or $8,000 a year my wife and I pay out of the $15,000, $13,000 a year in property taxes, the $7,000 or $8,000 that goes to the school system in our community is not the responsibility of government. It's not the responsibility of us. Now that's a whole nother discussion altogether. But here's the problem. We've sat idly by and allowed people that maybe don't think like we do to make decisions that we don't agree with. We've sat idly by and watched that slow degradation, that slow erosion of what we believe to be true and done nothing. Now what are you going to do? Are you going to go vote? And even then, going and voting only changes so much because the people that are in those positions running only know so much. Why? Well, because we the people want to watch the news and we want to see all the filth. Myself, I've been on the front page of the newspaper because I've been arrested in my life and I was helping run a campaign. If that just made one of you guys get all salivated and you want to go look it up, have at it. I hide from no man. But we want to read salacious garbage. As such, people that are true leaders, people that are true innovators, people that are true revolutionaries, and people that see and have plans, they don't want to get messed up in the government that as it exists today because we sling mud at each other. We put each other down. We tear each other up. And I'll tell you what, founding fathers, they had discourse. They had discourse for certain. Our very nature of how our government was created so that, I don't want to say arguments, but so that discourse took place, so that men, but by men I'm saying people, so that men sat down and figured out right from wrong, good from bad, and were able to have these discussions for what was best for the people. If your argument is times have changed, thus laws should change, then the argument usually is, well, they had slavery then, and the founders had slaves. We no longer have that. We changed that. Thus, the Second Amendment should change. Giving freedom is not the same as taking freedom, right? While there were signers of our Declaration that were in the possession of other people, remember this: most slaves that made it to America came here on slave ships, and they were collected by people in Africa, often Muslim countries, collected these people. Not my facts, not my history. Even people from those nations collected them, brought them to the coast, and sold them to slave traders that brought them across the ocean. It's not an excuse. But you look back at the writings from the founders, and every single one of them knew that the owning of slaves was wrong. And they began to build a country that spelled out and defined that all life was precious, that humans were meant to live free. Now check this out. Jefferson said later on in life, he was talking about, wrote a letter to a gentleman that, a friend of his, he wrote a letter, and at that point, this was many years after the Declaration was signed, Jefferson was one of the few men still alive that had signed the Declaration. He's talking in the letter about how all these men are gone, and he wasn't sure if in this modern time, 40, 50 years later, if the same amount of men would have got together to change the world, if those men still existed, still men with hearts full of courage. My words, not his. At one point in this letter, he says these men decided to trade chains for the sword. They chose to trade chains for the sword. They were risking death. 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 So when we talk about modern servicemen, what I'm about to say, I in no way, shape, or form have anything but love and respect. I have nothing but love and respect for the service people of America, law enforcement, etc. Modern law enforcement and service people, while their life may be on the line, they have a government that is protecting them, feeding them, clothing them, housing them, providing benefits for family if they do pass away while on duty or while deployed in war. The men that signed our Declaration, there was no government. These men sat down after much deliberation, after years of saying enough is enough is enough is enough. How much more can the king take from us? How much more can we be subjected to? How much more can we have a foot crushed into our neck and say and do nothing? The most powerful person on the entire planet was the King of England at that time. The most powerful living human soul was the King of England. And these men from our country, from my country, from your country, said, no more, friend. We are free. When in the course of human events, have you read these words? Have you read these words? They realized it was time to unshackle themselves from this person that claimed leadership over them as a birthright. Both Adams and Jefferson and others wrote. Jefferson wrote it, I believe, pre-revolution. I could be wrong, but he wrote, no man is born with a saddle on his back. He continues to write, no man is born with boots and spurs. Talking about you and I, a former slave, anybody, none of us are born. We have a natural right to fight, to live, to breathe, to do whatever it is we wish. No man is born with a saddle on his back. And no man is born just because of your name or where you come from to try to push down the life of another. I don't care if you're the royal crown. And that, friends, is bred into you, whether you understand it or not. That is in your very DNA as a citizen of this nation. This nation, friends, that is the oldest country in the world to govern itself. It is the oldest country in the world with its own constitution and charter. How can that be? We're only a few hundred years old. Because nobody else can make it work. Because nobody else has a nation made up of patriots that take responsibility for their lives. And this, friends, is the problem that we have now. This is the war that we have now. It is a war inside of ourselves. A war as to whether or not we will be responsible for the destiny of our country and for ourselves, the lives that we have. When you lay your head down, not just at night, but the final time before you pass from this place, is your life lived for you? Did you live the life you chose to? Was your path through this world something that you would go back and do again, or would you trade it? Would you change it? Would you do something different? You got to answer that. I can't. So is our Second Amendment still valuable today? You're damn right it is. Is it the end-all be-all? No, sir. Freedom is freedom. And the reason that other countries don't have these rights, because other countries do not see man as inherently free. Other countries do not see you and me as having the ability to be personally responsible to make the correct decisions. Other countries do not see the citizens of their land as people worthy of self-governance. There is no they, my friend. If you are the kind of person that believes in they, you are the kind of person that has lost the battle that I speak of. I'm sorry, friends, if I'm telling you this and you don't understand what I'm saying, but free yourself beyond these chains that you've shackled yourself with to believe that government or media is they. They is you. Nobody forces you to be fed anything. You do not sit at a table every day with your phone and eat the shit that comes out of it against your will. You tune in to whatever you allow into your brain, and there is no fucking swarms of drones. If you're referring to the one video that went all around the world, I hope you guys do know that that video was created by a professor from Berkeley University. It's well known. He did it as a social experiment. That's not a real video. And may there be swarms of drones? There could be. We the people still govern. No, there will be. Okay. You know what I believe in? I believe in my power to affect change, my personal power to affect change in every area of the world around me. So we can choose to have the personal ability to affect change in any way that we see fit. That change can be just believing what we're told. That change or that lack of change can be taking whatever it is I'm sold. That personal responsibility can also be used to say, I reject that narrative. I reject that swarms of killer drones are going to fly around and kill me. First of all, from a purely pragmatic standpoint, if we want to think about government, if we want to go down the rabbit hole of thinking that there is a conspiracy in government, which there is not, I'll tell you why I believe that in a moment. Are there conspiracies? Sure. We do not have some large governmental system run by a bunch of people in shadows. Bullshit. But what we do have is people that believe that. Why do I not believe that there is some large government conspiracy? Well, having spent years in politics, I was a vice chairman of the Republican Party here in my region. People are not smart enough, kind enough, or hardworking enough to get along with others to create a real conspiracy at that kind of a national level. That's one point. Second point, killing off people that pay taxes would not behoove the masses. If the point of this conspiracy is to control people, it would have to be for some type of gain. If that gain is to fly a little drone into their head and kill them, well, then that person doesn't get to pay taxes. It's just a stupid narrative that's passed on by fearmongers. That said, if that was 100% true and Mickey's 100% wrong, then we change that. We change that through a concerted effort of electing people that do not have that type of ideology, that believe that we should inherently be free. And here's the real issue, guys. If you have subjugated your right to think, to free and rational thought, and you buy into whatever you're sold, you're kind of out of this equation. You've told me that you have removed yourself. What that tells me, and I'm not patting myself on the back, it tells me people like me have to carry the weight for you. I'll carry the weight for you. Don't worry, buddy. I got your back. That's what that means. What has to happen is more of you need to believe in yourself to the point that you know I can change who my mayor is in my town. Not through aggression, not through violence, but through the power of how our voting process works. You don't like your sheriff? You can change that. You don't like the state representative in your community? Yep, you can change that too. Oh, that's not how it works. It's all a big scam. Bullshit. Bullshit. Believe in yourself. Believe that you have the ability to affect change, and I guarantee that you do. Is the Second Amendment something that's relative? Bigger picture. If your concern is all about your right to carry guns, you have lost the big picture. You have lost the point of being an American. Part of being an American is not just what you can take and get out of this country, but you have a job. You have a job. This is not something handed to you, and it is not something that you have to go fight redcoats for, but it's something that you, through personal responsibility, must proliferate. It's something through personal responsibility you must teach your children so that they too can proliferate this union. You don't understand? Is it beyond you? If it is, you need to dig deeper. If you're not grasping this, stop listening to media and start going back and looking at what the founders intended. We hold these truths to be self-evident. If reading those words or looking at those documents, go visit the National Archives. Look at those documents and remember the Declaration. 56 men sat down with a pen. 56 of them. This is gatekeeper crap. Good Lord. Conspiracies do exist. What the problem is, though, you've got two choices. You have this much bandwidth. You have this much bandwidth. Your computer, which is in your head, has this much ability to process information into output data. Good, bad, whatever that data is. You've got your job. You've got your family. You've got to find food every day. You've got chores to do. You've got friends. You've got hobbies. You've got so much bandwidth. If you spend your bandwidth reading into conspiratorial bullshit, you are burning up your hard drive space, your computing power to do that. Or friends, and I'm sorry if I'm getting a little bit heated, it's because I'm getting sick of watching people allow me and others to carry the burden for them. And I do a little bit. I know a lot of men that do a lot. And I'm not talking about even going to war. I'm talking about do something to change something in your community. Yeah, of course, conspiracies exist. They existed from the time of Rome. They existed when men lived in caves. But when we spend our energy living in some fantasy world, that becomes your reality. When you could have taken that same amount of computing power, that same amount of energy, and channeled it into something that was useful, something that was beneficial, something that moved the ball, something that proliferated the liberty that you hold so dear but do nothing to protect, something that you've done nothing and sacrificed nothing for. How about that? How about those apples? How about think on that for a minute? So these men signed their death warrant. They said, I could be hung for this. They put themselves in a position where many of them lost their fortunes, lost their homes, lost their families, were tossed into the wilderness. They knew that their children would be hunted. They knew that their properties would be confiscated, their gold would be taken. Some of them took the gold that they had and they invested it to buy cannons, to buy lumber to build ships, to pay soldiers to take up arms to fight, because people had to be convinced that this idea of liberty was worth the trade of life and fortune. What have you done? What have you done that was so bold in your life to merit this amazing thing that you have, and you're concerned that people don't want you to have a 17-round magazine? What have you done to earn the fucking right to have that 17-round magazine? Well, I shouldn't have to earn the right. I live in America. You've missed the point. You've missed the point. Am I making any sense to you? Are you at all tracking with what I'm saying? Does it mean anything? Can you at all grasp that our little finite lives have the ability to touch thousands. Your actions can touch 1,000 people. And if what you're doing is fixating on that which changes nothing or that which degrades, that becomes the outcome of your life. That becomes the totality of your existence. That becomes the totality of all that you are. The march of socialism will be difficult to stop. 56 men sat down before there was electricity. They had no army. They had no weapons. They had no cannons. They had no navy. And they went up against the strongest navy in the world. 56 men sat down and they did not say, well, this is going to be really hard to stop King George. They said, give me liberty or give me death. That is a trade, friends. That is a trade. That is putting yourself into a position where failure is not something that you're wasting energy thinking about. If you start an endeavor thinking about the ways you're going to fail, you have already failed. You have already failed. William James, the eminent American psychologist, once said, look him up, William James, he said, one of the greatest discoveries of our time is that man can alter his life by altering his attitude or his state of mind. I kind of paraphrase that. One of the greatest discoveries of our time is that you can change the course of your life by changing your attitude. If your attitude and your immediate action to an idea, to a thought, to something hard, if your immediate response is, this is going to be really hard, or this probably isn't going to work, my suggestion to you is you begin to change what your immediate reaction is. I can do this. I affect change. I move men's hearts and minds with my words and actions. I move mountains with my deeds. Do you understand? Instead of the march of socialism is going to be hard to change, they signed their death warrant so that 250 years later you could sit here and say, it's going to be hard. Some of these men took every penny that they had to feed the war effort, knowing full well that in the time of their life they would never reap the benefit of the thing that they invested their life for. That's sacrifice in every way, shape, or form. That is total sacrifice. And what do? We look at, what can I get? What does this place owe me? Oh, I went to the military, now I get the GI Bill and they got to pay for my college. That's not a bad thing, but is that why you're doing it? Or is it because you want to give something to the world, give something to the nation that gave you the ability to live in this free place? I drive all over the country, and I work with law enforcement people, some military people, and some amazing citizens that understand and comprehend the beauty of liberty that we have here, that we live under. Not liberty in some sense that you just say platitudes, some fancy word that you can recite, liberty, freedom, not that. The true sense of it, that they understand that this can be stripped from you just as easily as it's given to you. As such, they do something about it. You know, friends, there are many places, Canada, for example, that you cannot take your firearm and just travel around unmolested. Look up the word molested in the dictionary. It doesn't just mean a sexual nature. Unmolested by government influence. I can travel coast to coast, driving in a vehicle designed with the amazing ingenuities that have come about through America, right? This amazing place that we have has given the world trains that I'm passing, vehicles, electricity. We've harnessed electricity. We've harnessed the power of flight and defeated gravity. We are now harnessing the power of the wind and the sun. All of these things, for the most part, have come about because of the amazing ingenuity that has existed here in America since day one. Think about the birth of freedom. Think about the men that sat down, and when I say men, I'm talking about mankind that lived here in our land. The greatest group, that mastermind group of people that came together and said, we can do this. We can do this. Nobody told them it was going to be easy. They didn't fixate on how it was going to be hard. They fixated on what they needed to do to succeed. Never in the history of mankind, other than maybe Gandhi, Jesus, Muhammad, has there been people that have so affected the world for all of time. You get what I'm saying? That is not something that you should take lightly. That is not something that you should look at and not take great reverence in the very notion of your parents, for example. We all have parents, whether they were good parents or bad. We have parents, whether you knew them or not, your birth parents. Some of us maybe were adopted. Some of us maybe came from broken homes. Some of us maybe came from violent places. Some of us came from very kind, loving, warm places. Regardless, you owe your very existence to two people. No way around it. I don't care if you believe in God. I don't care if you believe in evolution. I don't care if you believe in freedom, if you believe in love. It took two human beings to create your life. As such, you owe your life to those two people, whether they are good people, whether they are bad people, whether they were alive or dead when you came to be. Do you feel what I'm saying? What we have here, we owe not only to the 56 men that signed their name to the Declaration, but to the men and women that went out and traded it. Now, every year during Veterans Day, Memorial Day, I usually will write for the newsletter. I will post things that are very pro-military. Don't get me wrong, because what I'm about to say is in no way, shape, or form, and I started to say this a minute ago and didn't complete the thought, is no way, shape, or form injurious or meant to be insulting to military or law enforcement in our nation ever in its history. What men have done since maybe 1800 is completely different than what they did during the Revolution. Yes, soldiers are soldiers. We have a government now, like I said. We have a system. We created taxes so that these men can be paid. We created ways to provide for the welfare of their families, as I started to say. These were people that took up arms against the most powerful person on the planet, the most powerful army, the most powerful navy. Not just a powerful army because they had weapons and soldiers. They knew how to wage war. They had conquered most of the globe in some way, shape, or form. They had the best sailors. They had the best troops. They had the best cavalry. They had the best training. And this is what these men went up against. Do you fully embrace what I'm saying? If that thought, coupled with reading the words that these men wrote, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that we are endowed with certain unalienable rights by our Creator. If that doesn't move you, if that doesn't cause your guts to stir, to understand that they were telling the king, there's a difference. You or I could write a letter to our president and say, we don't agree with you. Our Constitution protects that nothing can happen to you. By saying that, they signed their very death warrant. Do you appreciate that? Do you understand what somebody did on your behalf? I believe it was Adams that said one day into the future, this is my paraphrasing, I'll get most of it right. He said, one day in the future, citizens of this country will look back on what we did. They'll look back and they'll celebrate. He said, with aerial displays, fireworks. And he said, right now, we may never see the fruit of what we did here, of what we fought for, of what we toiled for. But knowing what we did and what they in the future will be able to live like and embrace, they knew it was worth it. That is sacrifice. So what are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice? If your immediate thought is, what is he talking about? Or if your immediate thought is, I served, that's not it, dudes. That's not how it works. We do not get to just go do a thing. This is a social contract. That contract, not social as in socialism, you and I have a contract. Our laws, our Constitution is a contract between men that we will live under this code of law. And in return, we will do our part to proliferate the union. We will proliferate good. See, here's one of the other basic problems that we have in our world. I don't care if you believe me, because if you don't believe me, what it means truly is you are ignorant to the truth. I'm not calling you ignorant. I'm saying you are ignorant to the truth. That makes you angry. It's not on me. I don't own you or your thoughts or dictate to you what you read or ingest every day. In order for our country to exist as it has, we must have had and had a code that we live by. See, we all have a code. Thieves have a code. Murderers have a code. Just and righteous people have a code. As we have removed this code from our society has degraded. We have had to add in more and more social safety nets to try to care for and protect those who live without a code, those who live outside the code. I was driving in the great state of Texas last week where I was in Austin, Texas teaching. And me and the guys left the range. We were going to drive to have dinner. We were on a big 6-lane highway, and I saw a woman. We're going 70 miles an hour. I saw a woman fighting a tire. And my immediate thought, not patting myself on the back, is, I'll try to pull over and see if I can help. As I did that, I saw there was a semi-truck that had pulled off and a man was walking towards her with tools to help. That's a code. It's not some chivalry, there's a woman on the side of the road, I better help. But places like Texas, people still say, yes, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. People still pull over and help. Look where I'm at right now. Let's see if you can see this here. You see that building right there? Building on the left. It used to be called the Sears Tower. Now it's called the Willis Tower. That's downtown Chicago. Trump Tower's out there. The Hancock Building's out there. The Prudential Building. Around here, a lot of people mind their own business. Your car gets broken on the side of the road and people drive right past you. What is your code? What is right and wrong to you? What are you willing to do to make the world around you a better place? Is the Second Amendment still viable? Of course it is, but if you fixate on that as something that is mostly important, you have missed the entire construct of why our union needs to exist. And this, my friends, is I think what we have really gotten far away from. I know I've repeated myself some through this chat, and I've done it for a reason. I've gotten a little bit forceful in the way that I presented this topic. I raised my voice. I used a little vulgarity. I'm okay with all of that. I did it not for effect. I was completely genuine. At one point, I moved myself even to have a few tears well up. Not because of what I was saying, but because the topic itself. If it does not cause your guts to stir and your eyes to wet, thinking that groups of men, I'm not talking about soldiers now, which is another story. I'm talking about people that you never met from over 200 years ago, were willing to die and hang at the gallows or have their families tossed to the wolves for you. If that does not cause a tear to well, if that does not cause you to shift your focus from what's on Netflix tonight and what other shit caloric filled food can I stuff in my trap, and who else can entertain me, and what else can I get, you're dead inside. you're dead. And that is the problem. You can change that. I can't change that. William James again said, the greatest discovery of our time is that we can change the course of our lives by changing our attitude. Friends, your attitude is not just when mom would say you've got a bad attitude. What does that mean? Oh, you're just one of those positive thinking people. I'm a realist. I just look at what is and I'm just real about it. No, friends, a person that says that they're a realist is a person that's a pessimist and does not have the cojones, does not have the intestinal fortitude, does not have the courage to look their fellow man in the eye and say, I am a pessimist. And through habitual pessimistic comments, through habitual reactions to outside stimuli, to the way I have habitually trained myself to react to the world around me, I have become a pessimist. I am sorry, this is the truth. If it takes some self-honesty to say that, maybe you need to work on self-honesty. But once you have identified that, you will meet no winner. You will meet no winner. I'm driving past up here is Madison in Chicago. Hang a left, you'll go to United Center. United Center, a few blocks that way, is where Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time. I don't care about sports. I care about Michael Jordan. A couple reasons. Well, here's a guy whose high school basketball coach didn't let him on the team. So you know what Michael did? Michael didn't say, F the coach, I'll play soccer. Michael went and practiced. Michael's friends were out chasing girls. Michael went and practiced. Michael's friends were home watching TV. Michael went to the dark court and practiced. Michael then, after he became a star in college and was in the NBA, hired a very famous trainer who wrote a book about this, who's still here in Chicago, that trains other people like Wayne Dwade and other people that have become very synonymous with being top athletes. Michael Jordan trained like a machine. Yeah, if you're still fixating on things like the devil and conspiracies, you have missed the point. Focus on that which you wish to focus on, and that is exactly what will become your reality. I choose to focus on what is good, what is pure, what is funny sometimes, what takes me where I want to go, what directs the world around me into a positive place. Think about the devil. Think about bad stuff. That's what your life will be. I'm not talking about not identifying that evil's in the world. The whole subject of my life's work, teaching people to deal with evil, is identifying it. But the positive is that we can live a life that has some purpose, where we are not confined by the thoughts of evil, where we are not dictated and mandated and controlled by the evil. I still can do good, and if evil comes through good intentions, and through trained efforts and focused aggression, I will suppress said evil. There's a big difference. And back to our thoughts, your thoughts do truly dictate everything in your life. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are, though, and you will become the sum of your thoughts. Right now, if I think, look at it, I'm going to show you again. You see the big black there? That's Sears Tower. That was the tallest building in the world. See the top of it? That was the tallest building in the world for many, many years. I could think to myself here, I'm going to jump off of that building. That does not mean I'm going to go climb up and jump off of that building. Now, though, if I give in to thoughts of depression, of self-loathing, of unhappiness, of being less than, eventually suicide could become a reality. Okay? Your thoughts cumulatively become your actions. Your actions become the deeds of your life. That is who you are. You are not defined by the media. What is in the news does not control how you think. What Hollywood pumps out into theaters does not control how you think. What plays through the airwaves of your radio, your iPod, your Xbox, whatever, does not control how you think. You control what you let in. What you let in, though, does start to dictate your habits, does start to dictate your belief structure. And if you are the kind of person, I tell you again, that immediately goes to the negative side of the equation and counts yourself as being a realist, you are a pessimistic, negative person that will never see true development or growth in your life. Back to Michael Jordan. If you think people like Michael Jordan fixated on the negative, you think Donald Trump Tower over here, becomes president because they fixate on the negative and they're being realists? The champions of industry, the man or the woman that designs the vaccine that saves life, the man or the woman that creates music that moves your soul and stirs your guts because you feel their emotion in what they created, if they sat down and said, oh, that's hard to do, or there's no purpose, do you think that the people that built these buildings said it's going to be really hard? I can't fathom building that tower, the Sears Tower. I can't fathom sitting down and drawing out all the nuts and bolts, but somebody did. They saw it. They didn't say it's too hard. They didn't say it's too big a deal. Our founding fathers did not walk into a pub. Hey, Sam Adams, get some pints. We got to talk about the oppression going on here. King George is putting us under. All right, men, gather around. Oh, the king. What a piece of garbage. What are we going to do about it? Well, I suggest we strike. Let's send him a letter saying we don't want to be servants. Oh, that'll never work. That's too hard. Yeah, you're right. Who am I fooling? Another round of beers, Sam. They didn't do that. They spent years deliberating. They spent years deliberating. They spent years planning. They spent years fighting, toiling, scratching. Read the story, my friends. Read the story of Fort Ticonderoga. So how we went, a little bit of history for you, Mickey's paraphrased version. Fort Ticonderoga had been around for a while. It was a French fort at one point. It was way up in the wilderness on the Vermont-New York border. In what was the frontier. That was called the frontier at that time. It was the middle of nowhere. The English had the fort at this point. The siege of Boston was happening, okay? So the war was underway. The Boston Tea Party had taken place. Shit was going down. The shot heard around the world had taken place. The beginning of the war was well underway. British ships were stationed out in the harbor, and Boston was besieged. They had no way to deal with it. They had muskets against the most advanced naval vessels and naval commanders in the world, okay? Imagine this. Is that hard? A city full of shopkeepers, right? And they've got the best navy in the world out there in the harbor. Yeah, that's hard. Guys, road to hoe. What did they do? Do you know what they did? General Washington said to a little guy, I do believe it was Nathan Hale, I believe, do some fact checking on me, and you're going to need to do us a favor. You're going to go up to Fort Ticonderoga. You're going to take the fort from the British. You're going to steal all the cannons from the fort, and you're going to bring them back here. I want you guys to go do the research on this, because some of the specifics I don't have intact. It's been a while since I did research on this. I've been to Fort Ticonderoga. It's a moving and beautiful place. Fort Ticonderoga, I believe, is 500 miles from Boston. There's no roads. This was during the Revolutionary War. There's no roads. This is deciduous forests. If you've been through that part of the country, that's rugged country. Rugged country. Mountains, valleys, hills, streams. Oh, guess what? It's winter time. It's the dead of winter in the Northeast. We have blizzards where 2, 3, 4 feet of snow fall. And at that time, winter was colder in the U.S. What do? Yes, sir. Off to Fort Ticonderoga. Guess what, guys? They didn't have trucks. There was no Humvees. There was no Helos. There was no frickin' satellite communication. There was no GPSs. A group of men with oxes and mules marched off northeast or northwest to go to Fort Ticonderoga. Before they even could get the armament to beat or to even engage in battle, they had to go take a fort, encamped fort with walls that are 30 feet tall. The walls are 20 feet thick. They're frickin' stones made like this. Holy shit! What do you think they were thinking about as they were trudging through snow across the frontier? Do you think they were thinking, we're going to get there and we're screwed? I have a feeling those men marched through that snow, probably some scared, knowing we can't let down our families. Our families besieged in Boston. See, what was going to happen is if they failed, the British were going to come in and wipe all of them out, suppress the rebellion, and that would have been it. We'd be speaking like this. Yeah. So they get there. They storm the gates. They caught them with their pants down. There's actually a diorama when you get there of the garrison commander out on a balcony with his hands up. They put up no fight. The rebels ran in. They thought that there were more than there were. They took the fort. So now, versus like, pre-modernized equipment, these cannons weigh tons. These cannons weigh as much as my truck. Men in oxen start dragging these cannons. Look it up, guys. I don't want to tell you the wrong number. Thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of cannons these men took with oxes in sleds. Not only were these men, you guys talk about or think about like special operations. Again, no offense. These men traversed hundreds of miles across wilderness with oxes and donkeys in wooden sleds. Took the British fort where they were entrenched in a position that was easily defensible from high ground. The reason that the fort was there is it was such an easily defensible high ground. You can see for miles. I've been there, miles all around. Then they had to get these cannons back. They've loaded them up. A couple points on the journey, these cannons broke through ice during creek crossings. I believe some men may have drowned in the process. But weeks after they set out from Boston, weeks. So now we're so used to instant gratification. They show up weeks later, men with frostbite, starving, hungry. General Washington, we've got your cannons, sir. You know what the general did? It wasn't, welcome in, boys, get them some warm stuff. We'll figure out what we're going to do. Those cannons showed up. Let's rock. They drugged those cannons up to their buttresses and started shelling right then and there. And the tide of the war began to turn immediately. Those people out on the boat, as far as they were concerned, see, there was no foundries. There was no way to build cannons like that in America. That stuff didn't exist. They made do. The spirit of what was in these people to persevere, to overcome, to push past obstacles, past limitations, past perceived obstacles, past perceived limitations, past what any normal person or group of people would think would be possible, became possible. As such, you and I live here today in the greatest country ever designed. So when you tell me something's hard, we know nothing of hardship. We know nothing of true victory. I mean, think about these odds, you guys. Not to be corny, but when you see movies like old school Star Wars, do you not think that the writer of those original books must have in some way, shape, or form thought about the empire in Great Britain, in the little colonies fighting for independence? Such an insurmountable goal. What can a man do when he is focused? What can a man do when he and his friend are focused together? What can 10 or 20 men do when they are focused together and they're doing it for good? You can move a mountain. You can free a nation of people enslaved by a king. You can create something that has never been done, an experiment of liberty that has never been done. That's what they did. What can you do in your life by changing how you think? What can you do by changing what you think you are capable of? That's up to you to decide. If you attach some limitations to it, that's on you. But if you begin to start to think about what these men did, and know that they were no smarter than you, they had no more opportunity. This phone that I have, guys, the phone or computer that you're listening to this discussion on, you have at your fingertips everything they knew then. You have all the knowledge that they had in a trillion times more. I mean, they hadn't figured out simple things like about germs causing disease. They hadn't figured out things like antibiotics, how lift and drag and thrust are required to create flight. They hadn't figured out things like a rifled barrel. They hadn't figured out things like internal combustion, ketchup, matches. Are you kidding? Television and all of this stuff that we have to entertain us, but more importantly to provide us information. You have no excuse to not have the perfect life. You have no viable excuse. If this makes you angry, it should. You should be pissed at yourself. You have no viable excuse. Helen Keller was born without eyes and ears, yet she touched millions of lives because of her attitude. Yeah. I had a young gentleman in class yesterday. I've been wanting to spend some personal time with him. His name's Miles. And Miles was kind enough to drive out to class yesterday and not only train with us, he which was cool. He brought his deceased father's vintage HK pistol. We got to all look at and ooh and ah over. But he told us a story. Let's check this out. Miles is a big dude. Miles used to be a bigger dude. He was into heavy lifting and eating well. Ran races like Spartan races. He was a very fit dude. He's a young man too. I don't think Miles is but maybe 28, 30 at the most, and I might be even off. He might be younger than that. Miles, a couple years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, started to feel sick. So he went to the doctor. And the doctor said, we're going to run more tests. They did some body scans on Miles. Stay with me now. Talking about adversity. We're talking about you're worried about your Second Amendment rights. And there's a lot more to it. I want to make sure if you've tuned in here, you understand what we're talking about. So Miles has some body scans done. They do a bunch of stuff, and the doctors call him in, and they're like, kid, sit down. We've got some really bad news. And he's like, well, what is it? And we're like, you've got cancer. And he's like, in shock. Well, what do you mean I have cancer? What kind of cancer? And they're like, well, to be honest, we don't really know. He had over 36 tumors through his body. Tumors the size of baseballs on his liver. Tumors in his head, on his lungs, all through his body. They gave him a couple months to live. He told the doctors, pardon my French, fuck you, fuck your diagnosis, and if you're going to help me, help me. If you're not going to help me, stay away from me. Realist? Pessimist? Or a true optimist that controls his attitude? Miles went home and quickly got really ill. He lost 150 pounds, I believe, 130 something pounds. He was down, he said he was a skeleton. He's taller than me. He's like 6'1", 6'2". He was down to like below 150 pounds. He said he'd have to put pillows and blankets around him when he slept because it was just his skeleton pushing into the bed or pushing into the couch. He started to have immunotherapy, and that makes you sick. So he's losing more weight. All of his hair fell out. He had friends that were well-intentioned, friends that said, man, if I was you, I would just party every day, go sleep with random women, party, drink. And he told those friends, get away from me. Go away. I'm done with you. He had to make a hard decision over being nice and placating somebody that did not have his best interest in mind or doing exactly what was required. 1 month turned into 2, 2 to 3, 4 to 8. 3 years later, I'm with him yesterday. He's got 1 tumor left in his body right now. The tumor a couple months ago was about 6 or 7 centimeters. It's 4 centimeters right now. What's that, about 4 centimeters? He's got 1 more tumor. Just one. Just one. The doctors tell him that he is a complete and utter miracle of science, and everything about it confounds them, and that there is no explanation. Now, I know Miles has faith and believes in God. But more importantly, if you take offense to this because of your religious aspects, then shame on you, because you don't understand how your Creator designed your brain to work. Miles took control of his thoughts. Miles would get up every morning and look in the mirror, and he'd tell his fiance, who's thankfully stuck with him through this ordeal, leave me alone for a while every day. If you hear me saying stuff in the other room, don't come in. I'm fine. Don't tell my family. And, I'll be okay during what was going to happen. And he'd go into the room and he'd look in the mirror. He'd put his hands up on the mirror and he'd say, you're a fucking warrior. You are a Viking. And he'd start telling himself this. And he would build himself up till his vibration of energy, his vibration of thought was so in tune with winning that eventually, my belief, the doctor's belief, yours if you choose to, his body, not only he convinced himself that he was going to be okay, his brain convinced his cells how to do it. Friends, if you don't believe that we have that ability over our physical body, you need to do some research. But we also have that same ability to affect the world around us. And it starts with how you think. And I asked Miles yesterday to talk about this with the students in class. Because if you hear a story like that, boy, that gives you purpose, thinking about how you can accelerate your own life to be a better father, a better husband, a better brother, a better son, a better mother, daughter, lover, neighbor, sister, citizen, whatever. And you realize that you do have the ability, the power to affect change in a thoughtful and in a meaningful way when you believe that you can. And he said there were times that he would get very angry. He'd want to yell at God. He'd want to say, why are you doing this to me? And he realized, maybe this is my cross to bear, maybe it's not. Maybe this is the way it's got to be, and I'm going to die trying. You get it? If you come to an obstacle identifying that it's going to be hard, you are surely right. Okay? Henry Ford said, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. A realist or a pessimist would say that that's just some anecdotal bullshit. You tell that to Michael Jordan, who was the greatest basketball player of all time. You tell that to the Wright brothers, who harnessed the power of flight. You tell that to all of the people that have achieved something that was hard. You tell that to that young man Miles, who's alive today because he refused to believe what dozens of learned men and women who'd gone to combined probably 100 years of school, formal education. He told them, you do not know the outcome of my life. You do not have the ability to control how this is going to go down. Yeah, you have your opinion, and I appreciate you for giving it to me. But either you're going to help me or you're going to get out of my way. That's what he said. Nobody owes you shit. Nobody owes you shit. Your life as a citizen in this free country, however it turns out, is on you. If we lose our right to own a firearm, you in some small way, shape, or form are to blame for that. How could I say that? Because it's true. We, the people. We, the people. When those men signed that death warrant, the point was not that those men would rule the show. The point is that they would create a system in which men would understand and appreciate and grasp the totality of the simple fact that they could affect the outcome of their life by controlling their thoughts and what they put out into the world. That is the beauty of this nation. You are allowed to think anything you want. If any one of you wants to tell me some conspiratorial nonsense in response to that, you have again wasted every one of my breaths. You have again wasted every point that I have tried to make here. That's on you, friends. That is on you. What do you want? That's the goal. That's the goal. Coming up with a goal. What do I want? Start with that goal. What is my goal? If you haven't noticed listening to any of our talks, this is where I usually like to take this discussion. What is my goal? Well, my goal is to live a long, happy life, free from predation and free to live, worship as I please, marry whom I please, chase the things that I feel are my dreams, goals, aspirations. All right. What are you going to do your part to ensure that this union exists? Not just for you to do that, but the next generation. Our government does not owe you. This country does not owe you. We owe each other. You tracking? At a stoplight. Anybody got anything they want to say? Oh, I need to stop thinking optimism is the only way. It's disgusting to me. No, pessimism is not required. See, when you're so deeply entrenched in a way of thought that you cannot see the path to light, my friend Miles that I just told you about, please never tell me that I need to stop doing anything. So as I've told you guys, every time I have a chat like this, if you don't agree, just tune out, man. I don't need to be told by anybody not to do what is right in the course of my life. I don't need to be told that somehow adding negativity. See, we're not batteries, guys. We're not batteries. You cannot serve two masters. You can't. Positivity and negativity cannot both live in you. One, both night or day must rule. Where there is dark, there is not light. And where there is light, there is not dark. If you want to be a smart ass and talk about shadowy, dim places, that's not the point. If there is darkness, there is no light. And if there is light, darkness is somehow abated. Correct? You cannot serve two masters. Your brain cannot do both. And yes, sometimes we are negative. Yes, sometimes we do have pessimistic thoughts. But if you are not ruled by, if your dominating thoughts are not that of overcoming obstacles, that of victory, that of winning, you will be a loser. I'm not calling you a loser, but that is the outcome. You cannot have both. And you cannot show me one example. I challenge you to show me one real example. And if you do, show me an example and give me an hour or two, I will show you that it is wrong. Show me one example of somebody that is a victor in life, a gold medalist, a champion of business, a champion of education, a champion of industry, a champion of politics, a champion of humanitarianism, a champion of science. Show me that person. Now, someone might think like Robin Williams, right? Here's a guy that was a leader in the comedic field, made people laugh, and it ended poorly for him. See how it ended? Do you see where the negative thoughts took him? Now, mental health is a whole nother issue. I'm not trying to take it to that place. your mental health is directly correlated to your thoughts. Now, there are issues related to chemical levels of the brain, abusive levels of chemicals. If you're using or abusing drugs or alcohol, these things affect your brain chemistry. But friends, if you don't know, it's bothersome to me, guys. If you don't know that you cannot be both pessimistic and optimistic at the same time, we got to work on this. It's impossible. It is impossible. Michael Jordan, I talked to you about. Now, if we're talking about planning, let's talk about Ticonderoga again. George Washington. Men, I need you to head up to, you took a course. Very good. Cool. I didn't mean for that to come off condescending. It kind of did. I apologize. That wasn't how that was intended to sound. I'm letting you know I apologize. Sending these men off. It's going to be tough, but you're going to make it. Now, those men probably circled around. I don't know all their names. Robert, please find enough provisions for the 100 of us for 3 months, whatever it was. You, make sure we have enough muskets. You, XYZ. They had to go through that. They had to plan for eventualities. They had to plan for bad things to happen. They had to plan for contingencies and things that could pop up that were not happy thoughts. They didn't assume it was going to be a cakewalk through the mountains. That is not pessimism. That is optimistic. I am planning for things that could cause a hiccup, that could derail my plans. I am coming up with ways to overcome. As such, I have a plan. That's not negative to talk about that. Now, it becomes negative when you say, guys, I don't know how we're going to take enough food. I mean, it's already a really long walk. I don't know, what is General George thinking, how's he thinking this is going to work? Not the same as planning. Now you're back to being negative. You tracking? So, on that thread, on that note, life is not a paradox. Life can be a paradox. You're missing the point, and what's happening right now, friend, is you're fixating on what you believe to be true. You're not allowing any new information, and you're saying, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm not doing the same. I'm reading what you're saying, I'm thinking about it, and what I'm saying is maybe there's another way to think about it. Yes, there are paradoxes. Yes, there is good and evil. There is yin and yang. There is light and dark. But you, friend, can be ruled by one. The sound is bad right now. It's not an S3. It's actually $1,000. Here, tell you're in Chicago when people are laying on the horn. I'm on $1,000 Note 9 brand new phone. Yeah, so you're missing the point, man. What you're trying to do is come up with ways to validate your point, which isn't the way this is going to go down. You or nobody else is going to prove to me that having a dominant, overlying thought process of negativity is correct. No way, shape, or form will I abide by that. So I'm not going to waste my energy arguing when there is no point. I challenge you to do this. So go look at armies. Look at leadership of any sort. No. Okay, 5x5 by you. So maybe it's not my phone. Maybe your phone. Maybe that. Ooh. I challenge you to do this. All of you. The next time you open up your phone, okay, to read about whatever, you're going to look at some model bullshit on Instagram. Perhaps instead of doing that, read the Constitution. All right? Start reading the Federalist Papers. Here's a really cool idea for you. Hillsdale College, one of the older universities in this country in Michigan. Hillsdale College, one of my really good friends' sons graduated from there. He's now with the South Dakota State Police. Hillsdale College is basically a constitutional college. They have a free online course that is awesome. It's an awesome course. Each video is about 45 minutes or an hour long, and you can actually get a certificate that they'll send you if you take the test at the end of these courses, and you're getting basically a college level course in the founding documents, and it's being taught by, I'm sorry, I gotta pay attention for a second. It's being taught by leading authorities on the subject for free. Hillsdale College. If you go on their website, you'll see this. You can download it, or you don't download it, you can watch right on their site. Instead of looking at like tits and ass on Instagram, or another video of some guys shooting guns, instead of turning into the CarryTrainer channel, go read about that. And what's going to happen, friends, if you literally inject yourself into that and don't just go through the motions of learning, but really start to think about what were these men trying to do, you're going to start to feel your guts tighten. You're going to start to feel your emotions. I don't want to say, it's not in a goofy or laughy kind of a way. You will start to understand as you go through this, and you should start to feel something stir inside of you. It might begin as a little spark, it might be a snap. You should start to get pissed at what you see going on around you. You should start to get pissed at what you see, the fruit of your life. Awesome, man. Awesome. You should start to see what you're doing is maybe not. Stand by. I'm in a freaking shitty part of Chicago trying to circumvent a bunch of traffic because we can send men to the moon, but we can't add a few lanes of traffic, a few lanes to the highway. You should begin to start identifying things in you that are taking you from those goals. If you're a negative person, be a negative person. I've got enough positivity in me for a lot of people, but when I'm around it a lot, I have to pull back. The last few classes I was in, I had a few people that were self-deprecators, and I will put my arms around you on the firing line, as long as you let me, and I'll whisper in your ear, hey man, quit being down on yourself. Because you believe it when you say it. Happens again, I'll come up, I'll put my hands on the shoulder, and I'll say, hey man, I care about you. You care about you. Quit talking about yourself that way. Happens again, I might come give them a real hug. And people laugh. What are we here for, dudes? If not to perfect our lives. By saying to perfect your life does not mean to become perfect, but to work towards perfection, to work towards waking up each day and not going to bed with regrets, to wake up each day and to work through the process of that day, to work through the process of living, and to seek truth, to seek knowledge, to give truth, to give knowledge, to need less and to give more. I mean, that should be our quest. Doesn't have to be the same as mine, not whatsoever. Pulling back onto the highway, and it's not good. It's not good at all, friends. That's gridlock. I was born in Chicago in 1941. Look at that traffic. I was born in Chicago 1941. Yeah, damn. I just covered, this is why I hate big cities. I just covered 800 miles from the coast, from the Atlantic Ocean to here. It's the first time I've had to stop moving. Bullshit. Now then, part of the reason I like to do this is I could utilize this time of driving. I utilize it for a few things. I don't really listen to the radio. I will have phone calls like with family or friends to catch up, because I do a lot of driving. How much driving? This truck has 63,000 miles on it. I bought this truck less than a year ago. with 24,000 on it. So you're talking almost 40,000 or over 40,000 miles in a year. You need to learn to drive, wear a seatbelt. I need to learn to drive. I'm wearing a seatbelt. Did you literally just tell me I need to learn how to drive? And I'm wearing a seatbelt. Who the hell randomly tells somebody that just told you that he drives 40,000 miles a year that he needs to learn how to drive and wear a seatbelt when you can clearly see that I've been wearing a seatbelt this entire time? I got no problem popping off at people too. I want to be your friends, you guys. I want to share the things that I know. I want you to share the things you know with me. I want to have friendly discourse like me and Dan are sharing ideas. I would love to sit down with Dan and hear about his logics course. I really would. Maybe crack a beer and you enlighten me, because it's hard in this setting for us to have like a true conversation. I get to take a little snippet here and there, and it's mostly you listening to me, so it's pretty one-sided. But when you say something stupid or insulting, I will respond to you in kind, not with another insult, and not in an unkind manner. But I will ask you, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, we're sitting here, we're talking about the cause of liberty. We're talking about living a life that's noble and worthy, and you tell me I need to learn how to drive. Grow up. No, see, I don't want to tell people to drink bleach, friends. What kind of a person does that make you? And I'm not harping on you now, man. Here's the point. Talking about being negative or being positive, my friend here can write to me, and I don't know you from Adam, that where's my seatbelt? I need to learn how to drive. And I don't need to let that bother me. I'm not angry. I'm not going to lose my composure. I'm not going to get knocked off kilter. I believe William James, who I quoted to you also, beer of choice is a quality IPA made in America. I know it was a joke, dude, but William James said, let nothing disturb you. That's one of my goals, composure. I want to remain composed regardless of outside influences, be it in violence, be it in an argument with a loved one, be it in under self-induced stress because I took on more than I could bite off, be it having a friendly discourse with somebody on the internet. I don't want to get mad. I'm not going to tell you you're stupid because you don't agree with me. And I surely don't want to tell somebody to drink bleach because I care about you guys. If I didn't care about you, I wouldn't take my free time to get hoarse talking to you. You get it? I mean, that there is how we begin to change the trajectory of our life. What is our motivation? Is my motivation to sell you gun training? No. If you want to come to some gun training and hang out with me, that's cool. If you want to go to 10 other places and get trained, that's good too. What's most important to me is that in some way, shape, or form, you men, I think you're probably all mostly men on here, become the best men you can be. Because I need you to be the best man you can be in order to ensure that the country that my children and grandchildren live in will continue to be the best place that it is in the world and become better than it is today. If we all can take the little snippets of what we know to be good, and by good I don't just mean just kind and good. Sometimes good is violence, friends. Sometimes doing good is that father down in Alabama last week that had to draw his concealed carry pistol and shoot that freaking murderous, bigotous asshole that tried to kill those people, did kill people. Sometimes that is doing the right thing. Sometimes being good is realizing that what we thought is right perhaps isn't. Guys, if you go back through my YouTube channel, which has only been up for 3 or 4 years, and there's some things that I, even just 3 or 4 years ago, that I won't teach in a class. I agree, dude. Or ma'am, I'm sorry. We change, we grow. you and I are not the same people we were in grade school and high school. I don't know how old you are, but you are not the same person you were last week or last month. And here's the thing, if you are, you're not growing. Doesn't mean that everything has to change. Like, I've always loved to be goofy. I've always told dirty jokes. People don't like it. I don't care. I like it. I've always had off-color humor since I was a little kid. I used to get in trouble in school. What's different is I have learned my audience. I'm not going to be in front of a bunch of ladies and tell the same jokes I'd tell in front of a bunch of dudes. I'm not going to be in certain arenas because it's just not socially acceptable. So you learn, you evolve, you grow, you dig. If you're not, then you're not trying. You're not perfecting. Is the Second Amendment viable today? Was that clickbait? Did he give us clickbait? No, man, that wasn't clickbait. That was my thought. And this is where that thought went. Are you worthy of the Second Amendment? Are you living a life worthy of the freedom given to you through the blood, the sweat, the loss, the sacrifice of the men and women that traded what they had for you and I to live this life today? Damn, that should sober you up. When in the course of human events, just the way that they wrote was so dang powerful. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, he said, give me liberty or give me death. And he meant it. When Patrick Henry said that, he said, look, that's how that speech started. Everybody always knows that quote. Patrick Henry got up in front of the crew trying to get the Declaration signed, and he said, men, we're standing here idle, doing nothing, while our brothers are already out in the field, fighting, dying. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that was basically what he said. He said, we stand here idle, and our brothers are out in the fields. They needed these men to act, to start developing an army, start raising capital through taxation, for the common good, to be able to fight and win. He said, we stand here idle while they're already out here. And those men were debating. Some of them said, look, we just got to placate the king a little bit more. We'll talk through this. We can do this without bloodshed. And he said, I don't know what course you're going to take, but that's not my choice to make what course you're going to take. As for me, give me liberty or give me death. And what is liberty? What is it? Liberty is not your country owing you health care. Liberty is not your country, my country, owing you all the stuff that we think it owes us. Liberty is a place where I can travel unmolested, where my property, my effects are not illegally searched and seized, where I can have a trial of my peers, and right, wrong, indifferent, their word is bond. Did you know that if you go to Great Britain, you don't get a trial of your peers? You get a trial by a bunch of freaking judges. You get a panel of legal experts. It's not a trial of your peers. How amazing is that the founders knew, I don't want to be judged by men who are elected, men who can be tainted. I don't want to be judged by those in office. I want to be judged by my neighbor that knows me. I want to be judged by my priest, by my neighbor, the local shopkeeper where I buy my goods. That's who I wish to judge whether I am honorable or dishonorable. Were my actions honorable, and does the people that live in my community, do the people of my community, would they recognize my acts as honorable? How amazing that they thought about doing that. Do you appreciate where you live? We take so much for granted. If you can have a pessimistic attitude on what these people created for you, shame on you. I could just keep talking about it for hours because it, to me, is such a magical experiment that I don't care who you are and what you think you know has never existed and never will exist under the sun. It never can happen. Have you thought about that? This can never happen again. America can never happen again because there is no frontier left on the globe. There is no place free of technology where men can just drag out of the earth buildings and cities and roads, where we can drag out of the earth the things to build skyscrapers, where we can create so much. Was there problems in that time? Sure there was. Get over it. Move on. Your life is a flash. It's a flash. Live. Do your thing. Oh, well, it's easy for you to say you're white. You've got white privilege. Fuck you, man. I grew up poor. I wore my sister's pants to school. I've been arrested. I have had to fight that stigma as a young man. I've had my name slandered in the press. Had people lie about me. I've had people lie about my family. I've had people try to slander me in business. I've had people in this business try to lie and tell people that I say things that aren't true. It's all bullshit. Well, it's not all bullshit. Some of what I just told you is true. I hide from none of it because I know I am fallible. I have fallen. I have made huge, egregious mistakes. Yet I live in a place, one, where a judge said, get out of here, wrongfully charged. Thank you, Your Honor. I live in a place where I am innocent until proven guilty. I live in a place where we have a presumption of innocence. There are places in this world where you are guilty until you can prove you're not. There are places in this country because of we the people, not because of government, but because of we the people, it is getting to the point that you are guilty until you have proved otherwise. There are places where the Second Amendment has been so degraded that you must prove you are a good person to have a gun and prove why you need it, rather than them having the burden on them, the lawmaker, to prove that you are not worthy of it. That is how our law works. But that only came about because we, the people, allowed it. Yeah, that's the truth, guys. If you can't own that, you have no business. You have no business calling yourself an American if you can't own it. Family unit's part of that. Is it a family unit? Or is it I have many friends. I hear that family unit. I had somebody the other day comment, I'm the last generation that drank from a garden hose and played in the street till dark and ran in the woods all day. Bullshit. My kids did all that stuff. I think we're looking to every generation. My father says, oh, my generation was great. And I laugh. And I say, your generation beat the shit out of women, and your generation still called black people the N-word, and your generation still segregated people on buses, and your generation frickin' beat on hippies for trying to protest. And then you go back a generation before that, and it was even worse. You go back a generation before that, women weren't even allowed to vote until 1919, so fuck the notion of the good old days. We have always had dissension amongst men. But what we always come back to in this nation is the idea that liberty, and that what a beloved notion that is, overrides all. And as such, I will do everything in my power to not tread on your rights, and you will do the same for me. Here's the problem with conservatism and liberalism. The Second Amendment, guys, doesn't belong to you if you don't think that somebody that's against it doesn't have the right to think that way. If you think that a homosexual doesn't have the right to be married, but you do, I don't know, man. I don't know. If you think that a liberal doesn't have the right to think evolution's real, or a person that doesn't believe in God, an atheist, thinks that you believing in God is wrong, if they don't have the right to think that, you don't have a right to tell them to think how you do. That is what's really wrong now, and that is something that's been wrong with man for all of time. If I disagree with you, It doesn't mean that I think you're wrong. It means I am going to go with the way I think. And I had a hard time with this as a younger man. I fully respect your right to believe and think however you want. Now, if you get angry and you want to yell or spew and tell me I'm stupid or something like that, I'm not going to talk to you. But I fully appreciate your right to believe whatever it is you want. That's a big issue. There were people at the dawn of our union, at the dawn of our republic, that didn't agree. I said this earlier in this session here today. Thomas Jefferson himself wrote that he wanted the Constitution to have a sunset clause, that every 33 or so years it would fizzle out and the new Constitution would need to be redrafted. He thought that it was wrong for the dead to dictate laws to the living. He said that the world, the earth, was for the living. John Adams corrected him, though, and said, hey, brother, you're super smart. You're right. I'm repeating myself, but some of you guys chimed in later. He said, you're right, but that's actually what we're doing. We are laying down this bastion of freedom. We are ensuring, enshrining, and creating this beautiful piece of legislation, this document that is our code between us. We've started to look at ourselves not as citizens of a free state, but as subjects. I am not a subject. I kiss no man's ring. I bow to no man. I bow to no one. I am a free American. I hope you feel the same way. I bow to no one. I do not bow to you. I bow to no authority. I actually have a hard time in some ways with authority. But I do respect the construct of our union, which means I respect you as another fellow citizen, and therein lies the problem. If you don't agree with me, I know you were joking, friend, but you should drink bleach. Or if you don't agree with me, you're a this word or you're a that word. Or if I don't agree with you, I'm this or I'm that. Well, you can't have liberty if you expect everybody to think like you do. You can't have liberty. Not everybody has to be a gun-loving hill rod. Not everybody has to be an academic. For that matter, I've got friends that are very left-wing liberal and they love guns. And I have friends that are very right-wing conservative and they believe in murdering babies, i.e. abortion. So everything is not always so black and white. Parting thoughts, guys, because I'm going to lose my voice and I'm going to be home shortly and want to be able to have a conversation with my family. Parting thoughts. The way that you think, 100% the way that you think over and over controls the outcome of your life. A single thought does not do that, but a multitude of thoughts does. Just like a single word is not a song, a single word is not a poem, a single word is not a melody, a single note rather is not a melody, but strung together they become something. They become a song, they become a book, they become a symphony. You get what I'm saying? I just made that up, by the way. Your thoughts strung together become the music that's in your head. We all have a rhythm in our head. That rhythm, friends, that rhythm can make you smile and want to dance. That rhythm can make you frown. That rhythm can make you want to tear the world apart. That rhythm can make you want to flip the world upside down for good. You set that beat. You do. Nobody else does. You ever read the poem Invictus? Ernest Henley? Is that right? Ernst Lee Henley? I've been driving a long time, pardon me. He said, out of the night that darkens me, black is the pit from pole to pole. Who knows the rest of the poem? Basically, this man had a physical ailment, and he was making this comparison that he was imprisoned. He said, my head is bludgeoned but unbowed. He took a bash to the head, but he still did not kneel and bow. Life sometimes gives us that blow to the head. You know the next part of the poem? Anybody? I'm waiting. Yeah. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. You guys read what Chris is writing there. I have this poem. It's in my workroom, and it's also in the office on the wall. For I think whatever gods may be, for my inconquerable soul. Inconquerable, meaning you cannot conquer my soul. I'm waiting, man. Finish your typing. Do it. Do it. So, you guys see that? In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloodied, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and terror looms the horrors of the shade. Some people thought that he was talking about death. And yet, the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged the punishments. I think it's of the scroll, is it not? I am the master of my fate. I, motherfucker, am the captain of my soul. Yeah, I added a little bit. I told you about Miles. He looked in the mirror and said, nope, either you're helping me or get out of my way. He told that friend, I'm done with you, I'm sorry, but to tell me to just drink and screw random women until I'm dead is not the way I'm going to die. 36 tumors, 4 months to live. Over 3 years later, 1 single tumor left that's that big. He'll live. I have no doubt in my mind that he will live a long, full life. Not only will he live a long, full life, but based on what he did, he will touch 10,000 lives, 1,000,000 lives. That, friends, is the power. That, friends, is what the signers did. They knew what they were doing may or may not help them in the moment, but would touch 1,000,000,000 souls. Boom! Freaking stardust, man. We're all freaking stardust. And what those guys did just sent it out into the ether for all of eternity. And it started with thought. It started with thought. Everything you are begins with a thought. Every word that comes out of my mouth begins as a thought. Every song that is sung begins with a thought. Every building that is created begins with a thought. And thoughts don't come from nothing. You, friends, control them. If you don't believe that and you think that thoughts just pop randomly into your head, this is when you kill somebody and they say the thought just randomly popped in my head, they still go to prison or to a mental hospital for the rest of their life. Your thoughts become your actions. Your actions become the deeds that make you who you are. Who do you want to be? Who do you tell yourself you are? What do you see when you look in the mirror? And if it's something you don't like, how are you going to change it? How are you going to make your time here in these United States of America worthy of the price that was paid, laid down as a sacrifice for you, for your family? so you can have a job, go to school, eat good food. We live in an amazing place, friends. We live in an amazing place. Down in Texas last week, it's hot. I got a case of water. I told this story last week to somebody, and I'm flying home. Of course, I can't take a case of water. I picked it up and I said, who wants this case of water? All these guys had vehicles. It's a case of cool, clear, fresh, pure water. Nobody wanted the case of water. And I walked it over and I set it down and I said, what a land that we live in, where we can turn down a couple gallons of water, pure water. Where many parts of the globe, something like that is the difference between life and death. People drink tainted filth. And here, we have so much of that. I don't need it. We're out to dinner the other night with this group of people, and we have these portions of food here that are enough for 3 people. And they served us food, these ginormous portions of food, and the waitress said, you want to wrap it up? And everybody's like, we're in hotels, I got nowhere to put it. And we just throw out plates of food and we think nothing of it. We live in a place where we can afford to just throw out plates of food and we don't think a thing of it. We are blessed beyond measure. And it started because of a thought. And those thoughts came about because of the desire for somebody to live free, for somebody to live unchained. How are you going to proliferate that? What goal, what purpose, what direction will you live? On your deathbed, will you look back and not, I think if you look back and think everything was awesome, you're full of shit. I've made 1 million mistakes and I'll probably make 1 million more. I've made mistakes that have ruined relationships, caused grave financial issues for my family, lost a house, had a car repossessed at one point as a young man, filed bankruptcy. Yep, did all that. What are you going to do to change it? That's the thing. So don't wish to look back with perfection. Don't wish to look back and I regret nothing because it was all awesome, and be pious about it. I respect the injuries that I've done to myself and others because I learned something from them. I don't look at them as waste. I don't look at them fondly because they still hurt. I respect it. I respect those bad choices and I move on. Excuse me. What do you want? What do you want it to be, and how much are you willing to trade or change to get it? Do you realize that there is not something for nothing? This liberty that we have came at a great sacrifice. You cannot lose weight without a sacrifice. You cannot develop physical wealth without a sacrifice. You cannot develop mental health without a sacrifice, without trading something. You cannot develop positivity without going through the trial of having to fight yourself and tell yourself, I will not listen to what the doctor said. I will not listen to what my father programmed into me that I'm not good enough. I will not listen to my mother saying, you're a wicked boy. I will not listen, these are some 4 examples, to the fact that society tells me because of my color it must be harder, or because of my social status it must be harder, or because I don't have an advanced degree I will not be able to earn a good living. I choose. I dictate the outcome of my life. I am the captain. I am the master. You dig it? So are you. So are you. Do not squander this amazing sacrifice which was handed to you. Do not. Frivolous use of our days, looking at what goes on in the media, frivolous use of your time, paying attention to trivial things, what's going on in social media, what's going on in the local news. We convince ourselves it's important. We convince ourselves that looking through our Facebook feed, we convince ourselves that seeing what is happening in the media is somehow changing our life. It's not. Instead of paying attention, see, what you're doing is you're living their dream. You are a pawn now, unwittingly in their game, and you don't even know it. When you go pay money to go to the movies, you are feeding the machine that Hollywood is. Good, bad, right, or wrong. When you tune in to the news station and you listen to the news and you say it's all bullshit, well, you're getting them ratings, which is keeping advertisers paying. When you buy the newspaper that you're saying is printing anti-gun stuff, or you regurgitate the story, you're proliferating it. That's their narrative, friends. Live your own. Do not squander your time. You know, I'm away from home quite a bit, and there's times that I am not trying to maximize every moment. I'm going to have some downtime this week. I've been on the road a lot the last month, and I'm going to have some downtime between now and the holidays. But I'm going to do a lot of writing. I'm going to do a lot of stuff with family. I'm going to do a lot of stuff physically. I've got a couple injuries that I've got to work through, and I need to put a couple pounds of muscle back on from letting some injuries rest. But I don't waste my life, man. Is what you're doing on the firing line in your training, is it making you safer? Is it preparing you to be better at living through violence? Is what you're doing through your day taking you closer to whatever goal you have, to have more money, to be more fulfilled, to have less anxiety, to lower your blood pressure, whatever? Is what you're doing? Or is it just a pipe dream? Is it just a wish? Are you doing something to add action? I didn't always, man. I squandered years. So if my words, in any way, shape, or form, the words of a recovering fool, the words of a recovered procrastinator, the words of a recovered liar, the words of a recovered criminal, the words of a recovered derelict father, the words of a recovered loser, the words of a person that abused alcohol, that was addicted to cigarettes, can somehow affect you in a way to have you not do the same things that I was doing for as long as I was doing it, and therein is the benefit, man. It's not for naught. It's not for nothing. I believe that is a ghost. I believe that my words have power. I believe that my words can spur people to action. That's what I tell myself. I also believe I tell myself this daily. I believe that I see opportunities that present themselves to me to help facilitate and make that happen. I believe that I surround myself with men and women that want to facilitate that. I believe that my life is one of purpose, not just of servitude, but also of good things. I like good meals. I like good beers. I like a good cigar. I like a vehicle with cool leather seats. There's nothing wrong with having those things. I don't need to be a servant that drags my nose to the dirt. Not a ghost, for fuck's sake. Okay, there's your ghost. Yeah, once upon a time, man, I drove out to the original Cabela's when there was only one in the country in Kearney, Nebraska, and then Sydney. That was the Mecca. As a young man, I was hunting, fishing. That was my life. I shot my bow for hours at night, and that was all I wanted to do. It's good to have ambition. That's how people get good at things. It's okay for things to change, too. I hope you understand, based on the totality of this discussion, that I firmly believe in that I am one voice in billions, but it has been well proven, not by me, but by thousands of people way smarter than I, that your thoughts dictate the outcome of your life. And that it may be hard to change your thoughts. If you believe that you cannot change your thoughts, then you have done nothing but given yourself another negative thought. If If you're dominating, if 51% of your thoughts are negative, you're a negative person. If 51% of your thoughts are positive, you are predominantly a positive person. Here's the interesting thing, though. I personally believe you don't stay 51% very long, because eventually the negative begins to erode the positive, and it becomes 52, then 70, then 80, and then you're a pessimistic prick, and it goes the other way. I was not always this guy. I was not always this person that could have their tooth cracked off and be away from home and not lose my shit. I was not always the person that could have a financial obstacle in front of me and not get super stressed out about it. I was not always the person that could do that. Courage begets courage. Fear begets fear. Belief begets more belief. Disbelief begets more disbelief. Surround yourself with people that believe. And you know what? If the person that you're surrounding yourself with is truly a positive person, they're not going to let you tear them down. They're going to help build you up, and they're going to break you. They're going to break you like a wild horse, and they're going to have you start changing. You have to want that. You have to desire to change. You have to desire. Nobody can make you. Nobody can force that upon you. You have to desire that, and then you have to begin to apply action. But it becomes easier when you are around people that want the same thing, that want the same for you. Now, if you really want to kick some ass, surround yourself with champions. Surround yourself with those that win at all odds. Surround yourself with people like Miles that doesn't take multiple doctors' word that he's got a few months to live. Surround yourself with people like my friend Z that become leaders as warriors. Surround yourself with people like my friend Dan Hart that becomes a local community leader, a leader in a gym that he owns, a leader of business, and gets to employ people, and not only employ people but provide good things for his community because he owns these businesses, and help provide good for his customers. Become like my friend Frankie, who just called while we were talking. Frankie rose to the highest echelons of special operations, and as he left special operations, he went into law enforcement and took all that he learned as a leader, was a PJ in the Air Force, went over to the Army and went to Ranger School at 40 years old. Now he's in his 50s, and he takes all of those amazing leadership qualities deployed all over the world, and he helps young police officers become blazing badass protectors of free society. You get where I'm going? Surround yourself with people like Don Deo and his wife that take what they learned and use it to help save life every single day. Surround yourself with people that have a passion to create art and music, that want to move people. Do you get what I'm saying? If you surround yourself with shitheads, you yourself are a shithead for allowing your time to be so wasted, so squandered. Surround yourself with those that matter, those that believe that you matter. Surround yourself with people that will not allow you to disrespect yourself, that will put their hands on you and say, brother, I'm not going to let you do that. Grab you by the face. You get it? Therein becomes the change, because you have learned to love yourself enough that you begin to respect yourself. And when you respect and love somebody, you are honest with them. And when you are honest with them, you pull the mask off. You begin to see what is real. And when you see what is real, you can actually identify real change instead of arguing and coming up with bullshit points that this or that is true. You begin to get to truth. Surround yourself with those that are good, with those that seek to do good, with those that will not allow you to go back to the places that you've been, with those that will not allow you to remind yourself that the places that you've been are not somewhere you must go back to. Those that don't allow you to berate yourself. And then you in turn can do the same for them. And eventually those moments, those relapses into those voids, into those dark places, into those caverns of our mind where we torment ourselves and tear ourselves apart, become less and less, because we realize that effort in itself is more futility. Those thoughts are taking us back from the 51% of the negative side to the 52%, to the 53%. They're taking us deeper. And we realize that it's so futile and it serves no purpose. So we again snap ourselves out of it and we go to another place where there is value, where there is goodness. Do you get it? Do you dig it? Do you feel it? Is it something that you can accept? Can you accept it about yourself? Do you believe? Do you believe that you are just as special as the president? Do you believe that you are just as special as a prime minister? Each and every one of you has inside of you the same spark of energy that is in any leader that ever lived. Every single one of you has inside of you the same core, the same thing that makes you human, the same tools, the same connection to the ether, the same connection to the cosmos that the greatest of all of us has or had. Whether or not you use it, friends, that's on you. Whether or not you tap into that and believe you do is on you. And therein is the difference between those that do and those that don't. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. So said Henry Ford, which I'm driving on. Thank you, Mr. Ford, for believing in yourself. Yeah, one of you guys earlier that said some things are hard, they sure are. You know what's really hard is living a full life, dying, and never having lived, never having tried, never having tasted how easy it really is to believe in yourself. So it takes just as much energy to doubt yourself, if not more, as it does to believe in yourself. How about you try that? How about you try that? And I challenge you, as you try these things, do not tell people what you're doing. Because most of your friends, because of where you're at in this equation, your friends are not going to have any idea what you're talking about. Your friends are not going to be the person that's going to build you up and be like, yeah, man. They're going to be like, what the hell are you smoking? Tell no one. Try it. What do you got to try? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Take something easy. I believe in myself. I believe in myself. I am very thankful that I am learning to believe in myself. I reject thoughts that tear me down, and I hold on to and create thoughts that build me up. That's what I tell myself. I don't have to so much anymore, but as a younger man, I did. I had to tell myself I'm a good person. I had to do that for a while. I had to start like a little farther down the scale. I'm a good person. I'm not a piece of shit. I had to start there. I'm a good person. I have value. I am valuable. And from there, you can add to that. I am a great person. I have value. I make people smile. Say whatever you want to yourself, whatever you wish to believe. Tell yourself that. Not once, not twice, but 100 times. And as you tell yourself that, don't tell yourself that and be thinking about a cheeseburger. Don't tell yourself that and be thinking about what you're going to do after work. Don't tell yourself that and be listening to a song or watching TV. Tell yourself that and imagine exactly what that looks like. Imagine exactly what that tastes like, what it looks like, what it feels like. As Nacho Libre said, I want to taste the taste. Love me some Jack Black. I want to taste the taste. It's true, man. If you can't taste it, it's not real. Remember when you first fell in love with a woman as a young man? Remember, you could think of nothing else. When I met Sharon, my wife, she came to my front door and came for a visit. I had some friends over and she was invited over to like a gathering where we were hanging out, and I let her in, and I'm like, and within like that's true love, man. That's like real love. I met her and I've not been without her since 15, however many years later, going on 15 years. And you get that feeling where all you can think about is that person. And yes, people write on this that love is just a bunch of chemicals. It's bullshit. It's not just chemicals. Your thoughts, you begin to think about them. You begin to do things to give life to those thoughts. Well, if I call her, if I can just get her on the phone and maybe like ask her to go out for coffee, I can get a chance to tell her how I feel. I can put the words together to just, tell her how beautiful she is. And maybe against all hope, right? Maybe against all hope, she'll be like, oh, that's cool, let's go out to coffee again. And then maybe there's a chance that this woman will feel the same way I do, right? We've all been there. And then it happens, right? You fall in love and you tell that person you love them and everything is awesome. And you don't look at any of the bad stuff. They don't fart. They don't poop. They don't have BO. They don't have bad breath. The annoying way they eat their food isn't yet annoying, right? You don't see any of that because of what you choose to see. You get where I'm going with this? Then all of a sudden something annoys you a little bit. And you begin to have to start fixating on things that maybe you shouldn't. Right? You fixate on those things and then that thing becomes more pronounced. Oh, the way she eats her food is so annoying. Not my baby. I like watching her eat. It's fun. I take a ton of pictures. And I just told Sharon this. I love the way she looks at me. I know she loves me because I'll see in the picture. I don't see it when the picture's being taken because I'm looking at the camera. And half the pictures is Sharon looking at me. And you can see in her eyes that she's smiling, that she loves me. And that's fantastic. Why don't we, with our spouses, with our significant others, why don't we look at that instead of how they eat their food? And I'm giving myself medicine right now, friends, because I'm not a perfect perfection of husbandhood. You are what you think. You are the sum total of your thoughts. And our thoughts can be dictated. Our thoughts can be controlled. When Washington decided we need those cannons from Fort Ticonderoga, that began as a thought. When he said, men, I've got a mission, that was a thought. When he told, I believe it was Captain Nathan Hale. Could somebody please verify that? I believe it was Captain Nathan Hale that he sent up there. When he sent him up there, that was a thought. And then that thought energy that started in Washington's mind was captured out of the ether, out of the stardust, into Hale's mind. And it swirled around in his head. And he began to add thought energy. Men, gather the provisions, get the oxen, build the sleds, get the musket balls, get the powder. Let's go. You dig? You control your thoughts. If Washington had not said we need to go get the muskets, the cannons and take the fort, the cannons would not have magically appeared. Boston would not have been, the siege of Boston would not have been broken. The British would have marched in. It started with thought, and sometimes that is hard. People ask me, how'd you quit smoking? I quit smoking. Oh, you just stopped? I fiddled around with it a little bit. I still sometimes smoke. I'll have a cigar. I have grabbed a cigarette from time to time and puffed a cig having a beer. Not a big deal. Doesn't freak me out. I don't go buy a pack. Not a habitual. Very infrequently. How did you quit? I quit. How many of you have heard this? And it's been years, guys, like 10. How many of you have heard this? I can't imagine not smoking because every time I drink or have a beer, I need to have a cigarette. What'd you just do? You just reinforced in your subconscious that which you don't want to do. I did this to quit smoking. So people go pay, they have lasers and acupuncture done. You know that is a placebo, right? You are using that as a means. I'm paying for this. There's a prick. It must be doing something. Thus it does, because you believe it does. Back to that word believe, belief. I am now vested. I paid for this. This doctor, this person did this thing. They know what they're doing. I believe. So I did this. I began to tell myself, I started to feel the symptoms of smoking physically. I'm sorry, we're going on for a long time, but I'll finish as I'm driving, and then this will be left up for posterity.
All ended.
I started having physical symptoms just because I'd smoked for years. Started to feel my body degrading, To run wasn't as easy. To climb a ladder wasn't as easy. To carry a bundle of shingles up onto a roof wasn't as easy. I started to feel like my breaths were not as full, etc. So I started to think, everybody that smokes, I think for the most part knows at some point I'm going to have to quit or die from this, one or the other. I chose the latter. I began to tell myself, this is really when I began about 10 years ago to truly begin to believe in myself. And I started to tell myself, I knew this stuff from being a boy, but never really truly applied it and then watched the result because I needed instant gratification and I would get bored with a thing. Now I really enjoy the process, like building this brand, building social media. I enjoy the slow process, watching it happen. So I told myself, I need a little sip. I'm a non-smoker. I am a non-smoker. I would tell myself, I'm a non-smoker. I am a non-smoker. I am free from the addiction of nicotine. Nicotine does not control me. I am not controlled by nicotine. I would just make these mantras up. I'd tell myself, I have a perfect cardiovascular system. My lungs are free and clear. And I would say this stuff over and over again. Sometimes out loud, sometimes in my head. I'd do push-ups, and as I got winded, I would say this is going to go away because my body is healing itself. It is repairing itself. I'm not addicted to cigarettes. I have control over what I put in my body. No chemical compound dictates to me what I do and don't do. I did that over and over again. That's hypnosis. That's what you're doing. Some people back in the day, Napoleon Hill called that auto-suggestion. I am suggesting to myself what I want. But you know what? I had to believe it. I really began to tell myself, and I began to visualize my heart pumping in my chest. I imagined that heart pumping smoke-filled blood, which is not really how it works, but I envisioned that. I just painted the picture. As I inhaled cigarettes into my lungs, I envisioned like smoke swirling around my heart and making it black and gross. And I erased that image, and I imagined like a healthy, clean, bright red blood, healthy, bright pink lungs. I would imagine those in my body. I imagined myself as an old man holding a grandchild and being healthy. My grandfather, one of them died at 40. My age now was as old as my dad's dad lived. He died of alcoholism. He was a smoker, but he died of alcoholism. 40 years old. My father was 14. If you don't think that had an effect on my life, based on the effect it had on my father's life, you'd be mistaken. I vowed that that wouldn't happen to me. Thus, I don't abuse alcohol. I do enjoy partaking in alcohol, but I don't abuse it. My other grandfather was a smoker too, and he did not live as long as he could be. Both of my grandmothers were smokers. One of them died of a smoking-related cancer. The other one died of another illness, but was always very sickly, and she was a chronic smoker, which did not help. I imagine my body fit and healthy. Am I Pat McNamara or some other fitness guru? No, I'm not. But I can outrun most men my age. I can outlift most men my age. I will definitely not quit versus most men, young or old. And I believe that I have the physical capabilities to do that. Thus, I do. Thus, I also do the things to support that. You can change things like an addiction. I do not believe that if you were an alcoholic, you are always an alcoholic. That's not what the 12-step program says. Well, guess what, guys? There's more than one way to skin a cat. I used to drink a lot of alcohol. I used to have cigarettes when I drank. Now I can have a beer and not smoke. I used to abuse alcohol. I do not. I can have a beer and go to bed. I can have a glass of wine and go to bed. I can have 2 or 3 and go to bed and not have to tie on some binger and get crazy. because I started to tell myself I am in control, excuse me, of my thoughts, my actions, my deeds. I am in control of what I do. A substance doesn't control me. As you begin to take more control of your life, some of the emotional issues that you're medicating yourself for go away. Thus, you don't need to be so medicated. Thus, you enjoy sobriety. Don't buy into the lie that just because you had an addiction in your life, you're always addicted to it. If you're a mental health professional or a substance abuse counselor and you disagree with me and don't like that I'm telling people this, shame on you, because you should expand yourself. How about we program ourselves to take control of our lives and work beyond the addiction? Who thinks that if you're addicted to something and you tell yourself, I'm always going to be an addict, but tomorrow's a new day. I'm always going to be an addict, but tomorrow I can do good. I'm always going to be an addict. What are you doing? You're programming yourself that you are still always an addict. You are keeping yourself weak. You are keeping yourself broken. You are keeping yourself under the thumb of addiction. I reject that theory, I reject that notion, and I reinvent myself. If I programmed myself to be something I do not want to be, I can reinvent myself. That is the beauty of how my body, your body, is designed to work. You can reprogram yourself to be something else. Friends, if you don't believe that, you need to. If you don't believe that you have the ability to direct the outcome of your life, I surely hope that you do. I can't believe it for you, but you can. Start with something small. Belief begets more belief. I just told you that. It's pretty heavy stuff. It's pretty heavy stuff. And as you take ownership of every bit of your life, what else happens? You begin to realize that you can empower others. You begin to realize that you can fully affect some kind of outcome in the world around you. You can change law. You can help pass concealed carry acts in the state you live in where you were told that would never happen. You can help elect people to office to promote and proliferate liberty and freedom. You can help encourage people to do good. You can help your children grow up to believe in themselves where they won't have to be an adult that doesn't know how to and has to find out the hard way. You can tell your child this is how it's done and this is what you're going to do because dad or mom believes that you're good enough and smart enough to do it. My daughter's beautiful. I don't tell my daughter, you're so beautiful, men are going to want you. I tell my daughter you're a beautiful girl, but I also tell her you're smart, you're kind, you're funny, you're compassionate, you're honest, you're loving, you're giving. You get what I'm saying? We have these things that we do that we don't realize we do. I also tell my daughter, you are a sheer terror to anybody that tries to physically cause you harm. You will react with righteous violence and courage if somebody tries to hurt you. I program that into her because I think it's a good thing. And I tell her and my son one day when you have children, not because dad told you to tell them this, but because you will believe it to be so because your father believes it enough, because living a long, full life is a noble cause. You will inject into your children self-belief. You will inject into your children a love of self, a love of self-honesty, a love of good humor, a love of family, a love of kindness and integrity, and the ability and the desire to dish out righteous violence if needed, but also the wisdom to walk away from it every single time that you are able to. You get that? To put yourself in a place or space where you don't have to be. We can program ourselves, guys, to be anything we want. Yep, it's 100% true. If you don't believe me, I want you to. If you guys have questions on any of this stuff, some of this material is weaved in to the CarryTrainer program, believe it or not. My program is not a shooting program. My program is a program where you are learning through exposure to to new ideas and principles to live a long, full life. A weapon is involved in that. The ability to strike may be involved in that. The ability to talk to yourself and build yourself up is most surely involved in that. That's what I wish for you. If you don't follow us here on YouTube, please do. If some of this stuff resonates with you as being valuable, not for my sake, well, you know what? I'm not going to lie to you. That's a lie. A little bit for my sake because it's good for business, but also because I do truly feel that this information, not because it comes from me, because this information, which is true for all of mankind for all of time, it is true. People need to hear it. Some people need to hear it from a guy like me. Some people need to hear it from a woman. Some people need to hear it from a priest or a pastor. Some people need to hear it from a drill sergeant. The fact of the matter is, this material is true, guys. It's been vetted through all of history by anybody that's achieved anything of any value. Pass it on to your friends and loved ones. Yeah, some of them might laugh at you, or some of them might say, hey man, thanks. Somebody about some of these things, but I didn't want somebody to laugh at me. You know, the number one thing that I have going for me is I gave up caring what you think. I gave up caring what people and how people perceive my life. That said, I brush my teeth, I get a haircut before every class, I wear clean clothes, I put deodorant on. I do understand that we humans have prejudices. If I showed up to class with frickin' hair growing out of my ears and I smelled like a garbage dump and I had bad breath and food stuck in my teeth and mustard stains on my shirt, I would lose credibility with people. If you show up to a business meeting and you should be in a suit and instead you've got on frickin' coveralls, people are going to go look the other way and not buy your product. You dig? So I'm not telling you I don't care what you think, thus I do whatever I want. There still are some things that we in this society have to follow to get along. But I don't make my decisions. I don't believe in myself because you don't believe in me. Guys, I have people constantly here on YouTube and other places say, who's this idiot? I've had people call my friends and say, why are you friends with that guy? Did you know he was arrested 20 years ago? He's a criminal. And you know what? I had a friend call me and they told me that happened. And they said, you know, my friend, I would never not be your friend because somebody said that. And they said, I didn't even want to tell you this, but I only wanted to tell you in case you ever thought, would somebody ever call and lay down that kind of information? And they were concerned that I might be worried. And I said, you know, I'm not worried about that, but it means a lot to me that you care enough about me to take the time to be honest. It means a lot to me that you respect me enough as a friend and as a fellow human to tell somebody that's that shallow and that ignorant to go fuck themselves. You get it? You don't have to, not everybody has to like you. Not everybody has to get along with you. And unfortunately, some of the people that are going to not believe in you are the people that are closest to you. Some of the people that are going to remind you that you've done things that you shouldn't are going to be the people that you've known the longest. Some of the people that are going to remind you that you've had handcuffs put on you, been a drunk, been a loser, filed bankruptcy, done all those things, are the people that are supposed to care about you the most. And friends, back to my birds of a feather flock together, which I didn't use that saying, but the speech I said, you are the sum of your thoughts and who you surround yourself with. Think on this. You're trying to change yourself. The people that are going to be the hardest on you are those that are around you, that know you. Maybe your wife, maybe your husband, maybe your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your father, your mother, your brother, your coworker. They're the ones that are going to be the hardest on you. What does that tell you about them? It kind of sucks. Sometimes you got a shit sandwich and got to make some hard choices. Now, here's the one key to this, that right now it's dark out, right? I have headlights cutting a beam through this darkness. I'm in the countryside now, heading home. My headlights are cutting a swath, providing me light. You can be the headlights. You don't have to give in to the notion of, well, my family's going to be hard on me. You also perhaps don't need to leave them. If you are tough enough, strong enough, resolute enough in your endeavor, in your goal, you can believe. Oh man, we're going to sign this paper and King George is going to come kill us all. Give me liberty or give me death, said Henry. We stand here now, idle, while our friends are even in the field now. What say you? What say you? What say you about your life? What do you say about your life? What's it worth to you? What's the value? What amount of disruption or pain are you willing to endure to perfect your life? To take it to the place that you want it to go, man. God bless it. Doesn't that tear your guts apart to think about? You have the control, but you don't get it. Stop telling me why. But sir, those cannons are so far away. There's no roads through the forests. Hundreds of miles, sir. There's no roads. There are no roads. They had to chop trees down to make roads through forest to drag those thousands of pounds of cannons from Fort Ticonderoga back to Boston. Sir, they weigh so much and the snow is so deep. And did I mention there are no roads? Bring me those cannons. But sir, the fort is garrisoned with British troops. Bring me the cannons. Sir, there's rivers to cross. There's Indians in those woods. We might not have enough food. Bring me those cannons, men. Sir, I'm scared. Me too. Now bring me those cannons. Do you get where we're going here? Just so you guys know, I'm not crazy, but everything I just said to you, I say to myself. The conversation I'm having with you is a conversation I would have entirely with myself. So you listen to two and a half hours of what I may talk to myself about. If you think about girls all day long, hot chicks, what's that do for you? If you think about chasing money all day long, what's that do for you? If you think about the motorcycle you want or the house you want, none of those things are bad or good. It all depends on the context of your life and what you want out of it. Now then, if I think about how I can craft myself, I'm not talking about changing myself into somebody I'm not. I'm talking about crafting myself into a person that has total belief in my abilities to affect change in any situation within reason. Look, if I try to say I'm going to fly like Superman to the moon, I cannot change my body into a rocket ship. Okay? But if I believe that I have the ability to affect change, for example, there was a time I had a car repossessed. Now I can go to a car dealership and make a phone call and they just let me leave with the car because I have good credit and money to pay for it. That's cool. There was a time when going to the grocery store to feed my children was a sketchy thing. Now if we want to go to dinner and buy a couple $100 meal, that's not going to hurt the family's finances. There was a time when one vacation in 10 years was a big deal. Now I travel the country, staying in nice places, meeting nice people, and living how I want to live. Is it better to fixate on just getting stuff? Or is it better to craft yourself into the kind of person that truly believes that you can do and say and affect whatever it is you want to? That's what I'd do. Guys, I love you. I'm about to go home. I said goodbye a long time ago. I'm going to say it for now, for real. Follow us here if you're not. Message me if you need to. You can send us, go to CarryTrainer.com. You can get a message through there if you need to send us something. If you need help, if you got to really, talk. I am a QPR counselor, which is basically if you're ever on the edge of thinking about suicide, somebody that you can chat with. Don't abuse that. I will just get you connected to a local professional if that's the case. If you guys want training in your area or interested in training opportunities, we do private training. I've got a guy flying up from Arizona this next week. It's going to be awesome. We're going to spend some time on the range. It's not cheap, but we get to do it and have fun. We do some training like this for corporations. We do some trainings like this, kind of things we're talking about, for schools. We do some stuff like this for development of men. So get a hold of me if you need me. Be well. Love each other. Love yourself. Believe in yourself. And that, my friends, is all I got to say. Be well.